Yes.
My name is Brawand, and I am the junior representative for the respondent. I will be arguing that the decision of Lord Justice Sterling be upheld for 3 points. Firstly, I will be stating that my client did not make a misstatement of fact. And for this, I will be distinguishing this current case from the case of SO Petroleum, which is regularly referred to in cases of misrepresentation. Then I will be looking at 2 other cases in order to demonstrate that even if there was indeed a misrepresentation, Mr. Gandhi will not be able to receive any damages. So I'll now proceed with my first argument. It's been made clear up to this point that my client is not an expert on the subject of bikes. What's important here is not the amount of time that he spent riding his bicycle, is that he never actually claimed to be an expert. This is where the case of SO Petroleum is important, because it is clearly stated, you will find the pink tab in your bundle. The relevant section is highlighted by the orange marker, which clearly states, yes, you are, we should say, the layman. With all due respect, we are the experts. This amounts to a clear statement on one side that they are claiming to be experts. It must also be noted that in the case of SO Petroleum, we were dealing with 2 parties who had a certain amount of knowledge in that specific field. Yet, one party clearly said, I have more experience in this field. Therefore, I would like to distinguish that case from ours, since my client never actually said that he knew anything better about bikes than Mr. Gandhi.
Counsel, pausing there, you say your counsel doesn't hold himself out as knowing more about
Exactly.
Yes, that's certainly true of the facts, but he does state that it is a limited edition bike.
I would like to...
Does that not imply that he knows, or has some special reason to know that it's a special edition bike?
I will be addressing that issue later on.
Yes, Counsel.
This also relates to the point of inducement. Inducement is an important point when dealing with misrepresentation. However, in our case, we're dealing with a novice here. Mr. Gandhi doesn't know anything about bikes. He says it himself. This is clear from the facts of the case. So, could it really be said that the fact that the bike was a limited edition induced him to purchase that bike? There is no evidence to demonstrate that he was specifically looking for this type of bike. Even if my client had made a misstatement, even if my client had misrepresented the product, would this really have an impact on someone who had no idea what a limited edition bike was?
Well, Counsel, is the impact not represented by the difference in cost between £500 bike and that?
Your Lordship is correct. There's a difference of cost. But still, in relating to the issue of misstating the product, my client didn't, I believe, hold himself out as being an expert.
Yes.
I will now move on to my second point, which is that even if there was a misrepresentation, Mr. Gandhi never took time to inspect the bike. Now, this is clear from the facts of the case. Never was there a point when Mr. Gandhi went and inspected the bike. He had a lot of time to do this. He could have done it. He didn't. This relates to the case of Horsfall and Thomas, which is reported in the English reports, number 158, 813. It is in your bundle under the green tab.
Yes.
Basically, it was stated in this case that if there was an attempt to conceal a misrepresentation, if the claimant did not go and inspect, this could not have had an effect on the claimant's mind. Therefore, there was no misrepresentation. Now, this is important in our case for 2 points. First of all, we know, this has been said many times, Mr. Gandhi is a novice. He doesn't know anything about bikes. If he really didn't know anything about bikes, it is in his best interest to inspect the product which is being sold to him. We talked about the issue of cost earlier. There is a difference in cost between a limited edition and a normal bike. If there is such a difference between these 2 prices, it is in the best interest of the buyer to go and inspect the product before purchasing. This relates to a second point. It was made clear in the facts of the case that Mr. Gandhi actually has a friend who claims to be an expert on bikes. And apparently it seems very simple to ascertain whether or not a bike is indeed limited edition. It would have been very simple for Mr. Gandhi to ask his friend, I believe her name is Teresa, to inspect the bike, to ascertain that this bike is indeed a limited edition.
Counsel, am I correct in understanding your argument is that the onus should be placed on the appellant to inspect and to take the reasonable efforts rather than the person making the representation or not, as you say?
Well, since there is an issue of cost here, and possibly the buyer would be curious as to differences in cost between a limited edition and a standard bike, he might want further information and he want to confirm that the bike that's being sold to him is actually a limited edition one.
Counsel, what distinguishes this case from the case where a person walks into a shop and sees a bike which is mislabeled and takes it to the counsel? Where is the distinction? I'm trying to get down to the nub of your argument.
Well, the distinction in this case, my lord, would be that Mr. Gandhi had the opportunity to look for that information. He had all the elements to help him, and yet he did not take the adequate steps to do so. Finally, I would like to move on to my third point, which also relates to the Misrepresentation Act of 1967. As was clearly stated by my learned friends opposite, all that is required for innocence is proof of reasonable grounds. Now, this question of is it reasonable or not for Mr. Mandela to know if his bike was indeed limited edition or not, this is what comes into question. Apparently, according to the facts of the case, the only issue, the only element which distinguishes a limited edition bike from a regular one is the color. This is a very simple fact. This is something which is very easy to ascertain and to confirm. Yet, the whole time that the bike was in Mr. Mandela's possession, he never once confirmed this, never even tried to do so. Nothing in the facts of the case states that my client made any kind of positive steps to ascertain whether or not his bike was indeed limited edition. This would confirm the idea that my client firmly believed that his bike was limited edition.
Yes.
In conclusion, I believe the ruling of Justice Sterling should be upheld, and unless I can be of any further assistance,
No, thank you, Counsel.
that is my submission.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
his
thank you.
Lordship will now retire for his judgments. Court rise.